Hey everyone, this is Carlo at 4ZQTV here with Paul today on a very special interview. And hopefully I say the name of the company correctly, Zeitgeist.
Woohoo!
Zeitgeist Design and Production.
Right
Yeah.
on.
All right. And the special guests today, we have Joe and Ryan representing Zeitgeist. So can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
How much time do we have?
Because besides causing trouble, no.
Oh,
But
we
Ryan,
create,
go
we
back.
create we create engaging, immersive, entertaining experiences around the world.
In theme parks, in cruise ships, in
Retail entertainment centers, restaurants,
yeah,
resorts, events,
yeah,
anything at-home entertainment. That's why it's called location-based entertainment.
that's right.
It's outside. And we celebrate brands, we celebrate intellectual properties, we celebrate great history, mythologies, legends, and even our own stories, which are a lot of fun to create as well.
Yeah. And we're both veterans of Disney Imagineering, so we are well trained in the art of storytelling and applying it to places, and we enjoy doing that, and we enjoy working with clients and helping them, realize their stories or help them make their story and then realize it.
Mm-hmm.
What was one of the biggest projects that you guys have taken on so far?
Well, as Zeitgeist, remember, we both and our entire team had 30 plus year careers prior to joining Zeitgeist. So Joe has an immense work, amount of work that was realized, which is just amazing. I would say as a company, we have been under retainer with China's most successful owner operator of parks and resorts called the Chimelong Group. And that's probably the largest endeavor we've done as Zeitgeist because it's been 6 years already. Wow. And we have a great relationship, and we've just developed everything from
everything you can imagine.
New parks, new lands, new roller coasters, indoor coasters, dark rides, parades, flying theaters, observation towers.
Yeah. It's been quite a ride. We've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So 30 years is a long time. China. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. 30 years is a long time for both of you. Is there anything that you all worked on that like our viewer or listener might be aware of, might have seen?
Go for it, Joe.
Okay. For myself, if you've been to Disneyland Anaheim and been through Toontown, the home of Mickey Mouse, I led the design for that. I led the design for the two Disney cruise ships, the Dream and the Fantasy. We did there were a lot of firsts on both those ships. I was very proud of. I led the design for the expansion of Hong Kong Disneyland, including the iconic Mystic Manor attraction. Worked in Tokyo for almost 25, 30 years. I was the head of the creative head of the resort there for 10 years, and we did quite a few big projects there. So I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of great opportunities along the way. And like Ryan was just saying a couple minutes ago, we've had a really good run over the last few years working with our friends in Chimelong. And we've done other projects too. We had some fun with Hershey Park in Pennsylvania and designed their Halloween, their first big Halloween outing. And that was really fun because we got to design characters, come up with environments for them in the park. So yeah, like I said, it's been a good ride. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah. I remember I went through. Oops, sorry. I was just going to throw in real quick. I went through Toontown when the first year it opened. And I went with my school group, and I was an adult already. And let me say, that place is loud. Okay, everything makes noise. Everything you touch makes some kind of noise. It's like wow. It was cool. I mean, it's a lot of fun too. Yeah. But yeah, I just remembered that everything made noise, every little bit.
Yeah. So when you guys get a project from inception, so a client comes to you.
Hang on, Carlo, because I did accidentally cut off Ryan. He was about to say some of the stuff he'd worked on as well.
I was just going to say I was not as lucky as Joe has been in terms of getting projects realized, I did a really cool manatee attraction called Manatees The Last Generation at SeaWorld Orlando that was voted the best attraction in Orlando in 1999 because it was very heartfelt, and it was there for 20 years. I did a Titanic official movie tour. I did a project up in Canada at the big theme park there called La Ronde. A lot of concepts for work in Vegas, and we've designed, entire parks in Saudi Arabia, a BBC park in China, Monkey King Journey to the West park in China, just so many projects. But, I'd never understood this until the first few years at Disney, that you can spend months, years, millions of dollars developing something, and then it's just gone because some manager, executive decided not to do it. And that happens a lot.
So what that leads you to do is enjoy the journey. It's the journey, not the destination.
Right.
We try to have as much fun as we can with, understanding that the expectation is not about, oh, this is going to get built, at least not anymore.
Right.
And about how can we have fun along the way?
Yeah.
Right.
I've got to say the first few times that happens, so it's got to be heartbreaking because you put so much into it and you're looking forward to it, and you're going, it's not going to happen. Well, crud. Yeah.
Well, we always take every project as if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we want to help our clients be super successful. We want our guests to post it online and love it and make it a classic. And it's frustrating, when things peter out, but we had a great time along the way, and we learned something, and we've developed ideas that we might repurpose in the future. So,
and you just said something very important, actually. Treat every project as though it's going to happen. Because if you go in thinking, oh, this will never happen, then you're not going to be putting your best foot forward, because in the back of your head, you're thinking, why waste my time?
Right.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So when a client comes to you and they say, hey, we want to get something built, what is the whole process like? Do they just come in your office and say, we have this idea, we want, let's say, a river ride, right? We want a river ride theme park. This is our idea. Make it happen. Like, how does that whole concept to design to production go?
Well, from my perspective, the first thing is, whoa, slow down. We need to know the parameters, where is it? Who's your audience? How much money do you have? When do you want it to open? We need some basic information to vet these people, because I can't tell you how many people are out there that have a dream and nothing in their pocketbook but a great dream, and often they say, can you help us do this? You can be a part owner. And we're like, no, that's not our business model. We offer these services and we want to help you. So once we establish they've got a place, they've got a budget, they have a vision, all that, then Joe and I sit down and we brainstorm. We've all been all over the world. We know all the different references. We know what's worked, what hasn't. We know ideas that never got anywhere. So it's kind of this pressure cooker where and Joe and I have this great, back and forth, because we speak the same language. We kind of come from the same place. And we kind of pretty quickly can determine, oh, it should probably be this, and it could have this story, and we could have one of these drops, and we can have one of these, and that would be great. And then basically, once we have our vision, we call on our team. So we have people we've been working with for decades, great architects, planners, illustrators, designers. Joe does great characters, and Joe can do a lot of the design, and I do the writing. So we're a great team that way. And so I'll go outline it or write up a guest narrative about it. Joe will start sketching. We bring in the other guys, and we basically usually produce for a concept package, an outline or written narrative, some sort of architectural plan or design, image boards that kind of show what's out there that's similar, and then some initial concept art that kind of shows what we imagine this to look and feel like. And then, if the client wants it, we can get the costs estimated. We can work with our operations team to kind of figure out how many people can get through here an hour. And, do we need covered queue, air conditioned queue, open air queue? Does there need to be bathrooms nearby? All that sort of thing. And then we might work with a technical director as well to talk to the ride vendor, because we don't make the rides. We buy them from great vendors around the world to customize it for us. So that's typically the concept phase. And then if the client loves it, wants to move forward, we move into schematic design, where now we actually figure it out. What is each scene? How many animatronics are there? What do the environments look like? We design the sets, the elevations, work on the vehicle, all that. Then when you move into detailed design, where you go even deeper, carpet call outs, tile, rock work, all that. Then they build it, and we might work on the media. Joe and I are running around at vendor shops, art directing, creative directing, approving things, recording the music, recording the voiceover, working with the lighting designers, all the fun stuff. And then everyone shows up on site. We put it all together, we program it, we test it, and opening day.
Da, 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 da.
Nice. I got to say, you had me thinking about what went behind something like Indiana Jones, the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland, because I don't think you really think about all the little steps that go through that. The design of everything that we see from the moment we enter the queue, everything we hear, everything that says "don't touch," that everybody touches.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a really good point, because I think any great work of art, and I don't know if these are necessarily works of art, but any kind of experience, it should come off as spontaneous and seamless to the guest, the user. They shouldn't be aware of exactly what you said, of all the things that Ryan just talked about that we've gone through and that we've had to consider and literally touch every detail, in a design, consider it, how it's all going to work together. Because in the end, if people are aware that, and that's one of my criticisms of some of the attractions out there where, they use screens or other technique, all that should be invisible. In the end, you should just become engaged and involved in the experience and forget that there's mechanics and lighting and computers and all the other things that's running it. We don't want people thinking about that.
Yeah.
We just want them engaged in the story, engaged in the experience, and to be moved in some way.
Two of the best rides for that for me are the Indiana Jones ride, because once you're inside, you forget you're inside the Disney park, period.
That's right.
And then Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm actually, because I'm disabled, I actually have to go through the disabled way to get on. So I've gone through the underside of the boat where I see where the computers are and stuff. So to me, that was cool because I'm a techie. But still, as the average person on the ride, they never see that.
That's right.
They never get the peek behind the curtain that I got.
You don't want them to.
No, you don't want them to. But again, once you're down, you don't realize with one, you're underground most of the time.
Right.
I believe. And two, again, you forget you're in a Disneyland park because all of that has been shut out.
Right. And that is the formula for success. Make people forget about where they are for a moment, and they get lost in that moment. They believe they're going down a waterfall into a grotto surrounded by pirates. They're no longer in Amazon.
Yeah, it's theater, Paul. We want everyone to see the show from the stage from their place in the audience. What happens backstage is going to ruin the illusion for them. So we prefer they don't see it or think about it.
So when clients approach you, and I'm sure this is like a major concern, like you said, like it's great to have a dream, but you also need to be able to fund that dream, right? You can't just have the dream and expect it to poof out of nowhere. That's not how, it works. So when a client comes to you and they want something done, what would you say is a typical entry-level budget for like the smallest project that could be accomplished?
You mean the budget for us to design it, or the budget to actually design and build it?
Both. Yeah. Design and build.
There's no real answer to that because it depends what it is. We've had clients who want an immersive restaurant. We had clients who wanted, remember, Joe, in Santa Monica, an immersive coffee shop.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, it can be.
And they had they had less than 50,000. And there's also a point where, not to sound arrogant but there, there's a point where it's not worth our time and it's not worth we have other things that we could do, so we have to be selective. We try to be open to projects of all size. Like Ryan said, it can be a small little coffee shop all the way up to like a full park in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, like Ryan said, it's hard to give a single answer to that because of the scale of these things. And and like we said earlier, we try to approach all of them regardless of the scale with the same attitude that we want to make it great and hopefully it'll get built. If not, regardless, we want to create a great idea, a great product for the client. And so that always is what motivates us, regardless if it's a $50,000 project or a $500 million project.
That's a good answer. And I kind of like what you said there. I think it's important though for any business owner to be realistic at the same time. I wouldn't say it's arrogant to when it comes to financials. It's more about being realistic, because anybody could walk in and say, hey, I got this great idea, and before some companies might even start talking about a budget, they might go over everything in the idea, and the guy might be like, "Oh, I only have $5,000. Can we do it $5,000?" You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it happens.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Usually we get clients who are, a little higher than that if they're going to approach a company like us with our experience, working in this industry almost 40 years.
Yeah.
They know that, we don't charge minimum wage and just to build things nowadays, it's expensive. Lumber, all this stuff in Home Depot, lighting, effects, projectors. You're always looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars minimum.
Well, and I think also, just like, I'm a computer tech by nature, and I've been doing it for, I did the math the other day, for over 40 years, and I'm 57. Do the math,
Wow.
But that means that if somebody asks me to do certain things, they're paying for my experience. So I think
Exactly.
you guys probably run into what I do too. Oh, why do you charge so much? Well, because I've got 40 years experience doing this. You
Right.
can't do it yourself, so,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And by the way, and we tried, hopefully they realize that experience can result in saving money because we've made the mistakes. We've had the experience of doing these things. We understand, especially we really try to work to put the show in front of the guests. Because as Ryan said, these things are complicated. They have a lot of we call it back of house stuff that the guests will never see, but you got to see when you went on Pirates. But all that stuff, so you have to balance, where to spend the money, where it's going to give the client the most bang for the buck in terms of the guest experience. Because ultimately, if the guests aren't engaged and the guests don't love it, they're not going to come back, and your investment was for naught. So we try to think about, well, do we really need to put that road back there that's going to cost X amount that the guests are never going to see? Or, can we do a double warehouse that's going to work for them for both the maintenance of their rides and a place where they can store the food or whatever, thinking about those kinds of things. And those create economies for them. And that only comes through experience. You can't, especially in our business, everything we do is kind of a one-off. And so there's no formula for anything. Everything has to be taken on its own. And as Ryan said earlier, understanding what the box is, how many acres you have, how many people you want to get through, understanding all that criteria, and then being able to be smart about, where to put the money to make the best experience for the guests.
Yep. And I'm sure there are times that you've had the guest says, hey, I want to do this. And you go, well, we've seen this, try it a couple of times, and it never really works out. And so you have to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at the rocket ships from Old Tomorrowland that they tried to bring back at Disney's California Adventure, and it was open for 6 months, maybe.
And nobody wrote it.
It was boring. They added big beach balls that didn't work, so got rid of it. So if a client comes to us and says, I want a big air hockey board with vehicles that float on the air, we would have to tell them the stories and why that's not a good idea.
Right. The audiences have changed over the last, couple of decades, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's really actually that's a good point too that we try to consider. And I mean that's why Ryan named the company Zeitgeist. It's understanding what's happening now, what's in the zeitgeist now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so we try to stay up on what are the current trends, what are the things people are talking about, but also understanding that there's kind of constants too. Things that you mentioned Pirates of the Caribbean earlier. It's kind of a benchmark for greatness in our industry. And it still resonates today with guests. So you have to think about, okay, why does that still resonate with guests today? Well, because it's grand theater. But then you got to think about, what are all the other cool things people are doing now, and even how we've evolved in terms of how we digest information. I mean, with the internet and social media, people are grabbing information so much faster. So it's understanding how you want to entertain, but then putting it through the lens of today and understanding how to deliver something for today's audience.
Since we
Yeah.
keep bringing it up, I'm going to bring up Pirates again. One thing they did with Pirates is they refreshed it after the first movie came out. They changed the characters to look more like what you saw in the movie, so the audience would have something to relate to. Have you guys ever been asked in any of your roles to refresh a ride or bring something up to date or change something to make it look fresh and new to hopefully attract a new audience?
I mean, I had a couple experiences at Disney where not necessarily refreshing it, but after we opened the attraction, realizing we didn't quite hit the mark on what we were trying to do, especially with any interactive experience, you can never really second guess how the guest is going to interact with something. You can think of, 100 ways that you think the guests are going to interact, and you open the attraction and they find the 101st way to interact with. We did this attraction in Tokyo based on the Monsters Inc. Movies from Pixar, where guests were given a flashlight, and our client, which is the Oriental Land Company, they thought, oh, it's just going to be enough to have fun, trying to find characters with the flashlight. But in gaming, once you give people some kind of agency, they want to, they come with this pre-wired with what is a game expectation of a game. A game, I'm going to score. I'm going to know that there's some kind of feedback between what I'm doing and the target or whatever I'm looking for. So we had to go back and actually, turn it into a game, give them an objective, tell them, we put little hard hats on all the characters. And so you said, oh, you had to, point your flashlight at a hard hat. So, I mean, that's not necessarily refreshing to answer your question, but it's definitely going in and, rethinking an experience to make it work more efficiently or more targeted to,
Yeah. I think those two things are related. I honestly do.
Yeah.
Out of all the stuff that you have created together, do you have anything that really sticks out as something that was like, wow, this was fun. I really like the way this came out. This is one of our favorites.
I'll go first. Actually, it's something hasn't been built yet. Our fingers are crossed that it still might get built. Just because it was such an interesting concept and an idea to explore. And Ryan, I think you know which one this is. It's our City of the Dead. We were brought on to design in a museum in New Orleans about the cemeteries there. And it's just fascinating subject matter. And we just had the best time. This is getting back to, connecting. Ryan and I sat at a bar in New Orleans drinking cocktails and came up with a concept for this whole thing based, of course, on our understanding. After we did some research and we felt the zeitgeist of the moment there. And but go on, Ryan. I'm sorry.
No, it's true. We were challenged with creating this building a block away from where Marie Laveau, the Queen of Voodoo, is buried, and this cool old, big house, let's say. And we were challenged with how do we get people in here? How do we tell the stories of cemeteries, of the famous people buried, of a New Orleans jazz funeral, of vampires, of voodoo, of Marie Laveau, of this concept that you're put in this tomb for 366 days that gets so hot that your body turns to ashes, and they sweep you out, put you in a bag, and put you inside a tomb, because each tomb in that city, they're all above ground. Many of them contain hundreds of people because they're all in a little bag. So we learned all this crazy stuff. So we really tapped into what was going on in the industry and pop-up venues. And we had a slide, we had a ball crawl with bones, we had escape rooms where if you didn't escape before the sun came up and the vampire awoke, we had mirror mazes. We had a seance with Marie Laveau where she came back from the dead to clarify that she was not an evil witch. She was actually a very wonderful, helpful person who saved a lot of people. So it was fun, educational, and really gave the city of New Orleans a place to celebrate these things that are now really just ghost tours every night. So we took it through full concept. We began schematic. We were out on the site with our plumbers and electricians and architects, and this thing was a go. And then something called COVID happened. March 19th, we got the call, 2020, project's on hold. And here we are 4 years later, and still not back from the dead. So well, we're
Here's
still
the pun.
I have to admit, my only exposure to Marie Laveau is the old song, which I love.
Yeah.
But I do know who she is, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's like the Mickey Mouse of New Orleans. If you're
Yeah.
there, everything is Marie Laveau's, Marie Laveau's,
Yeah.
So we wanted to give her a home.
It sounds like a neat thing. Hopefully you get it done, because I've always wanted to go to New Orleans, and that'd be a great reason to do it.
Yeah. I think it'd be the #1 attraction in New Orleans if they
Yeah.
built anything.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that does
So-
sound amazing. It sounds really cool how what you just said. Like, it's not just like you were thinking in one aspect of like a cemetery. You thought about a seance room. You thought about a mirror maze. Like, you put all these ideas into the project, and it's just like mind blowing what you guys do. Like, there is like the perfect example of how you can take an idea and make so many different things around it to make it fun.
And if it's got a scary part, I want to take Carlo through, because he'll scream like a little girl.
No.
So
No.
Carlo doesn't do scary. Yeah. So
One of the best things was the sit-down show at the beginning gave you kind of a background on the whole premise. And at the end, it was revealed that the host of the show was a deceased jazz musician who's buried under the building. And it is true that there are bodies literally under this specific building.
Oh, wow.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So it would have been great.
To me, that's really neat that you took the actual history of the area and made it part of the attraction, because that's what makes it extra special.
Yeah. Thank you. So if you want to invest in the City of the Dead project in New Orleans, let us know.
So I know you said that you've done projects all around the world, basically cruise ships, Saudi Arabia, China. And, in America, I kind of have an idea what like our theme parks are. I'm used to like American theme parks. But do you have any significant differences between going from an American theme park to, let's say, a Chinese theme park or Saudi Arabian theme park when it comes in terms of what is preferred for a ride or what is preferred for a show?
I personally think storytelling is ubiquitous. It's universal. We're all humans. We all have nostalgia for things. We all feel love and sadness and anger and all those things. So I think anything with emotions, with music, there's great ways to tell stories without even using language. So those things are universal. And I think people told Joe, and you can talk more about this, the reason they didn't do the Haunted Mansion in Hong Kong was the American design team believed that the Chinese didn't like scary things, didn't like ghosts or spirits or that sort of thing. So he created Mystic Manor totally different direction, more about magic, not so much about dead people. But now that's not so true. You go look at Ocean Park in Hong Kong, they have one of the scariest, bloodiest horror, Halloween events in the world. So there's no truth to that. So I think, we're in a world now where the internet is a thing. It's a small world after all. Everybody sees what everybody else is doing, and it's really becoming the same. However, I would say that there's a park in France and Spain called Puy de Faux. And what makes them different from anyone else is it's an entire park with no rides.
Ooh.
It's very immersive. In France, it's all about, the history of France. In Spain, it's more about the history of Spain, but it's all big shows, big spectacles, indoor walkthrough attractions that are better than most dark rides, and a lot of emotion. And for me, it was probably one of the best parks and experiences I've ever had in my life, and I've been everywhere. And it's a whole new paradigm that I hadn't seen before that I think is going to you'll start to see them pop up in other places, and maybe people copy them as well. So it's inherently French, I would say, but they're adapting it for other countries. And the hope is to put one in America celebrating American history, which nobody's done. So it'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think just to add what Ryan said, I think things translate around the globe if they are connected to the human experience. And what we've learned, traveling around the world, and the experience that I've had, designing projects around the world, is that we're all the same. As Ryan said, we all cry at a funeral, we all smile and coo when there's a baby handed to us. We're all the same species. It's just cultural things and that that shape maybe the way we think. But if you stay true to those human quality, those that emotional part of us, and try to tap into it, you'll most likely have a successful product.
Yeah.
So when I think of China, I'm baffled because I wouldn't know what would be like a popular idea for a theme park in China, right? Like that's where I get a little bit off. Like I want to experience what they like and what they're into. And I know it might not be the same thing as, let's say, Hershey's Chocolate or Hershey's Park, Pennsylvania. So is there anything that you guys put into like a theme park in China that would bring an audience? Could it be like a favorite animal for the local area? Like, is it a local animal design? Would it be a local, maybe anime design? Is there anything like that is different?
Yeah, absolutely. Like for example, one of the parks that are part of the Chimelong group is an animal park, a safari park, and the universe gave him this incredible gift. He had a panda there that was pregnant, and she gave birth to triplets.
Ooh.
Which was amazing because that became an attraction. And they were smart enough to turn the triplets into an IP. They created 3 little triplet characters, with different personalities, and created a TV show around it. So and honestly, that could translate anywhere, but I think, it does have some cultural relevance because of the animals. That's their home, and they're home to that part of the world. I guess I was just going to go back for a moment. Just, the place where you do kind of have to make some cultural adjustments is usually in things like food. When we walk around the parks in China, I don't think, if you had a stand that sold chicken feet in an American park, that it would be that well welcomed. But there, those kinds of, cultural considerations are, I don't even know if it's a cultural, it's about, what they like there, and what they're used to there. But I think, again, back, zooming out, when it comes to the story piece of it, That's usually pretty universal.
Yeah, I would say you've got to do some research into what specifically you're doing and what the local audience knows. Joe and I follow something we call Mickey's 10 Commandments that Marty Sklar from Walt Disney Imagineering developed. And number one is know your audience. So we do our best to kind of study the trends. We look up the top films, let's say, or the top albums, or whatever we're doing. We research as much as we can. And we always know, they grew up very differently from us. They're not nostalgic for trains. That's why there's no train at Shanghai Disneyland. They don't care about steam trains. They didn't have that like we do. So, their characters, their animation doesn't look like ours. It's definitely more of an anime style. So that's probably going to be more popular to them. So, you have to understand these things. And for example, when Shanghai Disneyland opened, they put a huge Chinese restaurant right in the hub of the park, probably assuming that was going to be the most popular restaurant there. I mean, it's huge. There's room after dining room. And when I was there was no one there. And I asked one of the operators, what's going on? And they said, well, the most popular food item in our park is a turkey leg that we import from America. They love the turkey legs. They can't get enough of them. Who would have known? And in terms of the Chinese restaurant, they can go, right outside the park or back home and get the same kind of food super, super cheap. So why would they spend 5 times as much for the same thing in the park, especially when they have limited time? They want to get on all the rides. They don't necessarily want to sit down for an hour or two and have a big meal. So nobody was there. So, things like that, you kind of have to learn through trial and error. But we always try to, understand what we're doing and twist it in a way that will be appealing to our audience.
Yeah, I know. I know when I go to Disneyland, I go to get food that I can't get where I'm at.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense. Even when I've gone to England or when I go to other states and stuff, I will purposely seek out, okay, like when I went to Canada, okay, I want to try Canadian, food,
Poutine.
poutine.
Yeah.
So my friends got me some actual poutine. Okay, this but I do that. I purposely try to go out and try stuff that's local to them that I don't normally get.
Sure. And I
To
guess
me, that's
turkey
what makes it great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because in a country like China, traditionally, they have not had the ability to travel very much because of the government. And so a lot of the world has been brought to China. You will see full recreations of Amsterdam, of Paris, of England, America, buildings, structures, towers. They've brought the world to China.
So an Epcot Center would probably do very well over there.
Probably.
Actually, as a concept, yeah.
Yeah. Well, but things have changed now. It has opened up,
Right. Yeah.
I went to Austria a couple of years ago, went to the big symphony, and I looked around and almost everyone was Chinese. So they're traveling much more now. So it's different.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I never thought about the turkey legs having to be imported too, like that's interesting. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, you don't see much turkey. Every place
Yeah.
I've never seen turkey on the menu. Huh. And when it's chicken, it's very different chicken. There's no real meat. It's kind of
it's the little skinny
they don't bone the chicken.
Yeah.
They just take a big knife and just chop it up. Bone and all.
The meat, it's only about a quarter inch of meat. So very different.
Oh, I learned something new today. That's interesting. Paul, did you have any other questions?
No, I think we're good. So yeah,
this was fun. Thank you for letting us.
Yeah, I'm glad you could both join us today. Yeah, that was.
You guys have to ask Joe the pizza question.
Oh, that's
Paul,
right.
You forgot.
What?
The icebreaker question.
Okay, wait, it's not an.
It's the icebreaker question.
I'm gonna drive downstate and smack you. Okay, so Joe, we ask everybody this question: pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Good call. That is the right call, Joe.
I'm Italian.
See, so am I. And so is Carlo. Yeah,
yeah. My grandmother would throw you out of the house.
Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and talking to us and let us get a little insight into what this whole industry is. It's something that's not really talked about a lot. So we learned so much today. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. We would encourage you and our listeners to check out the Zoomcast that Joe and I co-host and co-produce. It's called the Spirit of the Time Zoomcast. It's on the Zeitgeist website at zeitgeist-usa.com. It's on our YouTube channel, and it's available everywhere you get your podcasts. And we have 32 episodes so far of mostly hour-long time travel adventures with the icons of the themed entertainment industry. So everybody
Nice.
from Tony Baxter to Joe Rohde to Phil Hedema, Bob Ward, Bob Rogers, they're all there. And you learn what happened in their youth, and we follow their career trajectory through time, understanding all the cool things that happen on all their great projects. And then Joe and I ask them the eternal burning question: what makes a guest experience timely yet
Timeless.
And they all have very different answers, which we're currently compiling into a little book. So
Very cool.
anyone interested in the history, the wisdom of location-based entertainment, check out The Spirit of the Time.
And we'll make sure we get all those links and add them to the description
Great.
of this interview.
Oh,
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Well,
All right, gotta
Thank you so
go.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Great, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.